the Doctoring Differently podcast. I'm Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid, your host, a pediatrician and creator of Doctoring Differently, where I teach physicians how to explore exciting, lucrative, and flexible careers beyond full-time clinical medicine. Today, I've invited Elena Raileanu, a seasoned human resources director and physician recruiter, to the podcast to help us understand how physicians can succeed in job negotiations. She's an experienced career coach preparing candidates for interviews, and she's the founder of Next Stop Dream Job. I'm so excited about Elena and all of the guests on the podcast. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. And subscribe to the Doctoring Differently YouTube channel to watch all of the episodes on YouTube. And now for my conversation with Elena Raileanu. Welcome to the podcast, Elena. Happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Also, I want to say I am a huge fan of yours. You as a person, you as a physician, and of course, you as a person who does a lot for the physicians in the United States.
Thank you so much. And it's so important that we have conversations with people like you who can be allies, who help us, who we negotiate with, who we speak to sometimes the most in the early job search negotiation process. So it's so good to have you here to give insight to my physician listeners in terms of things to do, watch for, and some real education and guidance around negotiation and that early job search. So to start off, can you describe your role when you were actively a physician recruiter? Who was hiring you? What were your expectations? And, what did you go into your conversations with physicians looking for?
Yes, I have been in human resources for 15 years, and I spend most of my time in recruiting physicians as well. And I've spent more than 10 years actually volunteering my time helping job seekers in all industries, because these are things that you don't learn in traditional school. There's no class that says this is how you answer questions, this is how you negotiate your salary, this is how you follow up. And so it becomes a little bit of a blind spot and eventually a blocker when it comes to getting that dream job.
That's right, it does. And I'll speak as a physician. It seemed like the minute I hit maybe third year, my last year of residency, the recruiter calls and emails and texts started coming. I have no idea how they got our information. We recognize, I think we learned early that there's a directory of physicians somewhere with our contact information, and whether we've ever reached out to an agency or listed ourselves on a directory, it doesn't necessarily matter because our contact information is already out there. So again, speaking for myself, and I suspect a few more physicians, at the beginning of our careers, I ignored and, blocked every call from a recruiter. Why do you think that physicians often avoid engaging with recruiters, even if we are looking for new jobs or positions?
A quick question before I proceed with my thoughts. Do you feel that physicians are mostly in control in their offices and their interactions with patients?
That's a loaded question, but I would say yes. We absolutely want to feel and crave that feeling of control in our work settings, definitely.
And so my thoughts are that responding to a text or a call from a random recruiter feels like, as a physician, you are put in a situation when you have no control. When a physician receives that call, they're wondering, just like you said, where do they have my information from? Number two, they wonder, will this recruiter waste my time? Because, interviewing requires multiple conversations. They think, does this recruiter work for a commission? Will they prioritize filling the role over matching me to the best job? Does this recruiter have specialized knowledge that will help them understand my unique skill set? And will this recruiter compromise my job search to my current employer? And sadly, is this recruiter going to be just as bad as the previous recruiter who pressured me and misled me? And so this feels like a situation in which you have zero control. The return on investment seems low. And the easiest thing to do is to just not even respond. However, you can respond and still be in control.
Okay. Oh, yes. Well, tell us, how can we respond? with all of those thoughts you just described, which are completely accurate, I think a big one that we don't talk about, obviously, is that feeling like, will my current employer know that I am even entertaining a recruiter? We feel very, very, very shaken, scared even to even broach that possibility. So yes, how can we go into these interactions or negotiations? I guess negotiation might be too early here, but how can we go into a conversation with a recruiter and still feel like we have some control?
The physician world is small. So the fear that your job seeking, even your interest might be exposed is valid. For that reason, from the very beginning, you can say, what you have to offer is interesting. I am not available, but I know somebody who might be. So immediately you have the right to collect information without saying, this is for me, this is for my colleague. And if
Oh,
they're interested, I'll
interesting.
let you know. And so
Okay.
you're off the hook there. And when somebody's calling you, if you can't pick up the phone, pick up or respond to that text and
Mm-hmm.
immediately ask, who are you? I'm Dr. Naomi. Who are
Mm-hmm.
you? What is your job
Sure.
title? What company do you work for? What is the job you want me to look at? What is the
Mm-hmm.
salary? What is the location? What is the entity? True recruiters always have that information handy. It's so easy for them to just send it to you. And then you
Mm-hmm.
open your email, you make a decision. Is the location, the entity, the job, the salary match what I'm looking for? And then you decide to engage, feeling in control because now you have more information.
I will say, from my own personal experience, recruiters are somewhat reticent to give all of the details or any real detail about a job at the beginning. So they'll say something like, "Oh, Dr. Naomi, we have a job. It's 2 hours from LA." Well, that is a big radius. So it could be, it could be closer to San Francisco. It could be closer to San Diego. It could be, halfway to Las Vegas. Why are they so reticent, and why are recruiters so hesitant to give us, say, the information or even the city or the name of the hospital that they're recruiting for?
Mm. What you're describing sounds like it might be a recruiter who works for a staffing agency. And
Ah,
so they're competing with other recruiters. So let's say I'm a
okay.
recruiter from a staffing agency, there's another recruiter from a staffing agency. If I give you all the information up front, what does Dr. Naomi do? Go straight to that website of the hospital, applies on the website careers page,
That's right.
bypasses me, and here goes poof, my commission is gone. But no,
Ah,
I made all this effort to find you, to determine if qualifications are matched, and I really want my commission. So now that
got it.
I gave you all the information, you use that, you bypass me, I lose my salary.
Okay, so I stumbled into that, in that that's an important distinction here, is that we may be being contacted by a staffing agency versus a hospital, like an in-house hospital recruiter. Okay, so should that be something we ask early when we are contacted? Are you with the staffing agency, or are you directly with the hospital?
You can get the answer to that question by simply asking, can you please send me an email with the details about the job? And you see that email is coming from at Pink
Hmm.
Sky, and they're getting you a job offer, a job at Blue Sky, two different companies. And you
Got
can
it.
immediately tell by their signature block that they are part of a staffing agency. Now, should you try to have an ally in the staffing world? I think
Hmm.
so. If you find a
Mm,
good recruiter, yes. Imagine
okay.
having your personal agent who will
Sure.
always go dig for you. Would you want to reward them for it?
Yes.
So there's a bright side to it. Sometimes you can partner up with a good staffing recruiter who can be your ally and your partner, know exactly what you want, and that can become a fruitful relationship.
Great. I've used that analogy in terms of like a Hollywood star or actor or actress. They have agents who work for them, and they need that person to, find opportunities, find jobs, find work, sometimes do the negotiation, making sure they're getting the best deals and offers that are the best fit. So I like to think of all of us as the Hollywood talent. And you're absolutely right. A good recruiter can be that very important ally. So what should a physician look for in that kind of ideal, transparent, honest recruiter relationship?
Yeah, somebody who has in-depth knowledge about your field and understands or seeks to understand your unique qualifications. Somebody who does not make assumptions, somebody who asks questions, somebody who is very honest and very direct quickly. Recruiters have a lot of information from the hiring team. Where have candidates in the past failed? And they can give you that information.
Mm.
That's valuable. And so if you see that the recruiter is listening, learning, reiterating, responding back to you as to what you said and it is correct, and they are reliable and they're not ghosting you, honestly, it's just like, is this a good person, to be
Yeah.
honest?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
to find a good person. And from a recruiter's perspective, when you already have a pool of candidates that you know you can lean on, you know, if I put Dr. Naomi Reid in front of this hiring team, she's going to ace it. I have no doubts about it. I already know how to represent her. I'm
Mm-hmm.
more likely to show Dr. Naomi the next job versus try and look for a new candidate.
I see. I see. Okay. Okay. So we've covered picking up the phone, responding to a text or email, just engaging. I tell you, that sometimes is the biggest step. I was actively told as a resident, don't pick up the phone. The recruiters are so pushy. You know, you'll talk to them and suddenly you'll be contracted to go to I'll say an A state. I've only lived on coasts, so states that begin with A are very far from me. No offense to anyone who lives in a state that begins with A, but that was always the fear, is that I'm going to be, shipped off for a 3-month stint in another state far away if I even pick up the phone to call a recruiter. And that fear, I believe, was bred in me in residency as well. So I want to dispel that for all of our physician listeners, that these are no obligation phone calls. If these are no obligation at all, get the information, have these conversations, get comfortable with speaking to recruiters, them answering your questions, you being able to suss out, as you said, the qualities of a good one and qualities of someone maybe you don't want to work with in the future. Okay, now let's get to the fun part. Let's talk money. So and a lot of what I talk about focuses on money and doctors talking about money and not being afraid to have those conversations early in negotiations. So at what point does that come up? Say a recruiter reaches out and has a glowing job for me, but they didn't talk about the salary. What do I do?
The salary negotiation should really be part of the first conversation and should continue until there's an offer accepted. Once you accepted the offer, be a professional and stick to it.
Okay.
Unless there's a big surprise. But it starts with the first conversation. It changes, it's agile, and then it ends when the offer is accepted. So if you're having a conversation with a recruiter and the topic of money doesn't come up yet, then you can be the one initiating that conversation by simply asking, what is the salary range for this role? And ideally, they tell you, well, the salary range is between $50 and $75 an hour, for example. Great. That's awesome. You don't commit to anything. You just say, thank you so much for sharing. You don't say, that's great. That works for me. No, just say, thank you so much. Show gratitude. What if they say, we can't really share the range. We have a policy where we want candidates to interview, and after 2 months of interviewing, we assess their worth and the impact they can do to the organization, and then we can make them an offer. And then you can say, thank you so much for sharing that. I would love to continue to work with you with the perspective of working for your hospital. When you are ready to share the range, I'm so happy to continue the conversation.
You did
obviously,
that really
there's
well.
pressure.
Yeah, keep going.
There's pressure building, and they say, okay,
Right.
sure, I cannot bypass Dr. Naomi Reid. I have to give the range. Okay, fine. The range is from between $50 to $75 an hour. Then Dr. Naomi Reid says, okay, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so now that I share the range with you, would you think you would accept? Do you have an offer for me? Well, not an offer, but a potential offer. Would it be like, let's say, what would be an offer you would accept? Then you would say, the top of the range would work for me. Well, we cannot offer the top of the range. Okay, then how close to the top of the range can you get? We can probably do 65. Thank you for sharing that. Are you committing? I'd like to talk to the hiring team. I'd like to learn a little bit more about the job. This is our initial conversation. But thank you so much for being so honest and transparent with me. Make no commitment in verbal or in writing and continue that. And how it develops, later you have an interview, second, third, you are learning more about the team, about the job. And then you can say, now that I've learned more about what my commitment would look like, $75 an hour is probably less for the responsibilities that you're asking me to perform. My desired salary for this particular role is $85 an hour. Oh, we cannot do that. I completely understand. Thank you for sharing. When you can do that, let me know and I'll continue the interview process with you. You always have leverage and know that you have it. It's not aggressive. It's just what it takes to do to get the salary that you deserve.
Excellent. That was a great example, with the only caveat of those figures were devastatingly low at all ranges. And as you know, I know it was an example, but let me tell you, when I scroll on LinkedIn, I see those offers for full physician salaries that are $50, $75, $80 an hour. We're not doing that. All the listeners, I've had recruiters offer me $62 an hour to resuscitate newborns on weekends. That is not acceptable. I actually tell doctors, let's go into, if we're talking about hourly salaries, which are hourly rates, which are different, of course, than a full-time type salary. But we're kind of talking about two different things here. So what you just described were hourly rates, which is probably a contracting type job, a locums type job, rather than a full-time job. But at the same time, I don't think any physician needs to go into any negotiation considering anything less than $150 an hour. So, but you described that perfectly. So I think a lot of physicians, the minute that they are quote unquote lowballed, they immediately feel so offended. You should know my worth. But also I don't feel in any way empowered to come back and to counter offer or to assert what I feel like I deserve. So what you're saying is I shouldn't just slam down the phone, be offended, and go back to the job I'm unhappy with?
There are a lot of rewards to salary negotiation. You get the salary that you deserve and sometimes more. And a lot of physicians simply don't negotiate. And that's really baffling to me. Going back to hourly versus salary, the entire compensation package is very complex. Right. And it's very important to understand that there is the hourly or the salary pay. There's the hourly or the salary pay. There can be an annual bonus. There's vacation. There's relocation package. There's 401k match. There's benefits. And so it's really a good idea to sit down and jot those down and see what the total comp looks like to be able to at least compare to other offers versus just hearing a number and know that that's off-putting and move on from it.
Sure.
Okay. Sometimes I talk to candidates and we talk about compensation and I say, okay, so this role pays X amount of dollars an hour. And they immediately say, that's not for me. Thank you so much. And they hang up the phone. And I'm thinking, wait, right. I am not just one person. I am a person who has a whole network behind me. Why don't you want to maintain a relationship with me? You can say, the salary is lower than my desired salary. I'd love to continue the conversation with you. Maybe you know about the roles that are more responsibility and more salary. Use the recruiter as somebody who is not just one person, but has a whole network of recruiters and hiring team behind them. And so don't walk away simply because you're hearing a number that is lower than what you expected.
Sure. And when you said, you're baffled that physicians don't negotiate, speaking from personal experience, my assistant program director in 2014, when I was finishing residency, told our class of pediatric residents, don't even try to negotiate your salary. It does not work for physicians, and it certainly doesn't work for pediatricians. They'll get mad and start taking things away, and you'll be left with less than they originally offered. I tell that story often, I hope as a warning to residents, trainees, even attendings who are my contemporaries, in that, I think she did irreparable damage to our relationship with money, with negotiation, with the value, feeling the true value of what we know and what we can do. And I want to believe she did not have nefarious intent, but she was speaking from maybe her own attempts at negotiation that had failed, and she was trying to save us perhaps that embarrassment that she felt, and that feeling of rejection that nobody likes, but physicians absolutely do not like. So I always like to have these conversations to say, I believe our training, first of all, as you said, does not prepare us, does not equip us. Because, I've heard you say that, physicians are, the act of doctoring is very selfless, but the act of negotiation is very selfish. And so we have to be duplicitous in nature. How do we, how can we do both? I think as physicians, I love talking to physicians. We are some of the most moral and ethical people. We tell the truth almost always. We have a hard time lying, many of us. And so being that quote unquote, two-faced, one person with the negotiation team, one person with our patients is difficult. So we feel like we need to be honest and selfless at all times. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Sadly, I agree. It breaks my heart to even hear that, and I agree. Yes, I agree. And a lot of the times, physicians don't negotiate because patient care is selfless in nature, and
Right.
negotiation, salary negotiation, it just seems very selfish. In addition to that, in a physician's office, there are no negotiations. I don't negotiate with my physician.
Right.
They have the
Well,
final say. And so they don't get to practice that negotiation muscle, and they don't hear no a lot. Trust me, I'm married to a physician. So they don't hear no a lot, and they don't go negotiate a lot. They have the final say. Physicians feel that their worth is known. They got their medical license, they survived residency, and now they are ready to practice. And they know that without them, there's no complete patient care. And so when you ask them to do something that is perceived as selfish just to reiterate their worth, it feels like, what? Haven't I
right.
always proven my worth in the 10
Sure.
years that I prepared to be in this job? So it feels unnecessary, it feels selfish, and it feels like it is a blocker. And I, I'm hoping to change your mind and tell you that it is not a blocker. It is a crucial and difficult conversation. You have crucial and difficult conversations with your patients. This is
We
just
do.
another one that requires a little bit more practice. If I were to say, "Hi, Dr. Naomi Ride," what would you say?
That's not my last name.
Exactly. You didn't ask for permission. You didn't say, please, may I please ask you to call me the right name? You just said, that's not my last name. That's
Right.
not the salary that I would like for this role.
That's right.
It's just as simple. It seems complicated, but is as simple. My desired salary is 20K higher. My desired salary is, double what you offered. And it's one sentence. And I think sometimes candidates feel the need to explain, because I did market research, because I have 10 years of experience. No, I
Yeah.
know what this job entails. And from everything that I've seen, my desired salary for this job is this amount. Done.
That's right.
Just like you say, my name is Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid, and not Ride.
That's right. And I'll say a large part, I think, of physicians' hesitation is we have so little information. There is no easily accessible directory of physician salaries. So we do not know truly what we can ask for. I will say the AAMC charges $1,500 a year for 1 year of academic physician salary data. So if that is not an impediment to physician salary transparency, I do not know what is. It is very clear that these institutions do not want us to know what people are earning, what people in our department, our colleagues are earning. That keeps them with some control. I'll say a lot of control, because we certainly don't know. And then they put up a $1,500 block between us acquiring that information. So it is very intentionally not known. So I tell any residents, if you are a resident or a trainee, the best thing that you can do is start to change this culture, in that, as residents, you pretty much are mostly on the same footing, or if you're all in the same residency class or a fellowship class. So create a Word document or a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, and put your offers. Put what each of you are being offered in a spreadsheet, okay? And then everyone go back and ask for 30% more. If someone in your class, someone in your administration told you don't even try to negotiate, please do not listen to them. I'm telling you, please do not listen to them. You need to ask, because if you don't ask, the answer will absolutely be no. So share your offers with your residency class. Start that early, and then I would love that for us, that to continue for all of us as attendings, or at least within departments, having that camaraderie. Would you agree that we need more salary transparency in medicine?
Yes, and I'd take it a step further and expand it to a much larger public, because there's the residency, but there's still other physicians who are their second job and still don't negotiate. And truly, they don't, because they don't even know what they can ask for. I mean, sometimes you can try and throw a dart in the dark. You can try. And so what I would say, and you have leverage as a physician, right? Like a recruiter will not let you go easily. They will hold on to you, because you are the reason for which their performance is good or bad, right? They'll hold on to you. At the same time, you can say, I see the ranges you share the ranges 100 to 50 to 175. My salary is 200. A recruiter will then come back and say, our top of the range truly is 190, right? So if you throw a dart in the dark a little bit higher, they will come back to you and say how close to that aim they can get. It's a little bit of a mental game. But I think the true solution is what you just described: full transparency. And Glassdoor is already good for many other roles, but I think you and I one time sat down and we looked at physicians, and I said, "Oh no, look at the physicians we can see." And you're like, right, but
Yes.
there's a wide range of physicians.
Exactly. No, so what she's describing is there's a website called Glassdoor where often salaries are posted for a lot of different industries. You and I looked up. You're based in the Boston area. I'm from the Boston area. We looked up Mass General Hospital and looked up physician salaries, and it was a range of something like 175 to 250. And I said, well, and it just said physician, no specialty.
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is not correct at all. It's not accounting for the wide diversity in physician salaries when you talk specialties, but it's just simply not correct. So unfortunately, here we are again. It can be regional, it can be city versus more rural. There's so many factors here. Again, we recognize as physicians, we just don't have that information. So we need to create it and at least do our own personal part. And it can be embarrassing. I'll say personally, it can be embarrassing. My starting salary as a attending pediatrician in 2014 was $125,000 a year, except that would have meant working 5 to 6 shifts in an ER a week, including overnights, including weekends. So I actually worked 75% time, which cut me down to roughly 4 days a week. And that meant I made less than $90,000 a year. So, and did I go into that job negotiation? No, negotiating? Absolutely not, because my assistant program director had told me not to even attempt. So what would you say if, a physician gathers their strength and courage, practices with themselves in the mirror, goes to try to negotiate, and either a recruiter or hospital tells them in their eye, we do not negotiate salary. We do not negotiate. Everyone starts the same. What should that physician do?
Sadly, that could be the end of the conversation. There's a
Mm,
time when one should know to stop negotiating as well. Sometimes as recruiters, we have this ideal candidate who is amazing, and with every step in the interview process they just flourish and they're the best, and then they're best at their best. And then when we make an offer, they just become a different person, a little bit more aggressive and things like that. So that can actually hurt their reputation long term. So
okay.
do negotiate, maintain that balance,
Hmm.
and know when to stop,
Okay.
because at some point a good recruiter will go and look for more money, will try to enhance that offer with a sign-on bonus, with more vacation, with a more 401k match. They'll try their best,
Hmm.
and I think at some point they'll say, this is our final offer.
Okay.
And at that point, you walk away. If that offer was not really the final, but was an
Hmm.
attempt to see if you will take it, when you walk away, believe me, they won't follow you. They'll run to turn.
Okay. All right.
Because sometimes there's bluff, and I hate to admit it, that it's our in the recruiting world, there's bluff. And you
Yeah.
say, thank you so much. If this is the final offer, this is the final offer. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the interview process. I hope we can meet again another time under different
Sure.
circumstances. As you walk away, guess who's running? Nobody wants to start looking again. Nobody
Sure.
wants to repost the job, look for other candidates. You have a lot of leverage as a physician. So
Hmm.
if they say the words final, take the word for it and walk away and just
Okay.
watch what happens.
Okay. Okay. And I think we need to recognize that a starting offer is just a starting offer, that they are not necessarily, again, we're scientists. We think X plus Y will always equal Z, and we think we're getting that full, complete equation every time. But we need to recognize that this is a dance. And so a starting offer is just a starting offer. As you described, staying gracious, staying open, staying thankful. And personable and responsive, keeping the lines of communication open, not just slamming the phone down if we don't like what's said, but having a conversation and recognizing that you truly are the prize as the physician here, and that you can talk back, despite what you may have been taught or what the hierarchy of medicine kind of ingrains in us. Just one foot in front of the other. Don't talk back, don't look up, take what you're given, be grateful for that, and move on. We'll take a short break and more with Elena Raileanu when we're back. This episode is brought to you by Foster Crown, a highly rated boutique physician and executive search firm. A first of its kind, Foster Crown facilitates both permanent and independent contractor placements nationwide with specialization in physician representation. Having a physician's first agenda, they can assist in orchestrating a hospital or private practice business relationship. This includes all contract negotiations, compensation, malpractice insurance, credentialing, and invoicing. Let Foster Crown handle the particulars so you can focus on patient care without the burden of administrative tasks. Visit fostercrown.com today to help discuss your career goals and how they can help you achieve them. Okay, we're back with physician recruiter, HR director, Elena Raileanu. Please pick up where you left off.
Let's talk a little bit more about the offer. The offer should not be a shock or a surprise at the end of 2 months of interviewing. This is why
Mm,
it's a continuous conversation. You start with the question, what would my offer look like? In the very first conversation, you share the range. I told you, that I thanked you for the range. And you can even ask, what would my potential offer look like?
mm-hmm,
You start there, and then after the first interview, you can come back to the conversation and say, I've learned a little bit more about the role. I think that for this role, my desired salary, now that I know more about it and my responsibilities, would be a little bit higher. So these conversations happened over and over and over and over. In an
mm,
ideal situation, if they truly happened and it was back and forth, then when the actual offer is in front of you, there's no surprise at all. And when it's no surprise at all, even then you have a little bit more leverage and you can negotiate anywhere from 10% to 15%.
got it. Got
It
it. Got
feels
it.
like a low ball. It feels like a shock when there's no conversation at all. And
Right.
then, oh, I put all this effort and here's my offer, really.
You're describing a process, right? It's more than 1 to 2 conversations. And we had a contract attorney on the podcast who said, one of the best things physicians can do is start their search early, accounting for the fact that there should be months. This is so important. We've trained for years. We may be staying in this job for years. So this can't be a decision that's made in a couple of days or a couple of even weeks. It needs to happen over time. So give yourself time to start negotiating. If you're at the end of your training, if you're in your final year, in the fall, we need to start having real substantive conversations with recruiters and having as many of these as possible. I know that as physicians also, we are rooted in one location. I would encourage physicians to cast a wide net. Please look in multiple cities, multiple areas. I think other industries, especially highly educated professionals, they recognize, listen, I may have to go, to a city or a part of the country I don't necessarily want to, but this is a good first job and maybe I can be able to move. I recognize physicians, maybe got houses, kids, we're trying to catch up with our colleagues because we're finishing training in our 30s, and we just want to root and plant. But sometimes different facilities can know that. And one more thing, and this may be something you can speak on or not, but I've seen too many stories. I've heard too many accounts of physicians staying at their training institutions and getting lower offers than if they had left. So if you're an attending and you love your institution, you maybe went to medical school there and residency there, and you want to stay as an attending, I'm so sorry to tell you, there's a high chance you'll get a lower offer than someone coming in from an outside institution that they know they have to lure in with a higher offer. You think your loyalty will be rewarded. Unfortunately, I've seen too often that is not the case. So please cast a wide net, apply to multiple institutions. And as you've described, we kind of have to be duplicitous. We have to have multiple offers. We kind of have to play a dance and game, which is so uncomfortable for us. We want to be honest. We want to be truthful and transparent always. But this needs to be a little bit more nuanced and artful.
Yeah. There's a way to get a raise in your current job. And there's 3 ways. 1, you can find out your peers getting more money. Go in with that information and say, what the actual heck? And that's how you get a raise. Mm-hmm. Another one, you may not feel comfortable with it, but you may say that you've been persuaded by another hospital, another clinic, and they are literally giving you an offer without an interview. Mm-hmm. And here it is. I am loyal. I wasn't looking. They came and found me, and they said this is an offer. And number 3, the best way to get a pay raise is to leave and get it somewhere else where from the get-go you have that negotiating leverage.
That's right. I have found the latter to be so true. Unfortunately, our labor truly is our only leverage, our only true leverage as physicians. I've asked for raises. I've written strongly worded emails, but until I walk out the door or truly hand in resignation or say, listen, if this is a short time contracting type work and my position, this part of it is over, I'm not coming back until I've got an increased salary. That is the only time the increases happen. And that is a very uncomfortable thing, again, for I'd say everyone, but particularly physicians. We are so loyal. We are a little scared of the unknown. We don't want to move around. We don't want to learn a new EMR. We don't want to learn a new system. And so we stay. But as I say multiple times, we can learn new things. We can go different places. To your first point about a way to get more money in the job you already have. I have a friend from medical school. She works in an academic NICU. She's a neonatologist. And a couple of years ago, she told me the story of having a team meeting, all of the neonatologists in the department having a meeting and being told that all of their salaries were being increased to $200,000 a year. I think that is low for neonatologists, but that's besides the point. And the only reason that that happened is because it was found out that all of the men in the department were earning more than all of the women in the department. And most of the men were making at or above 200,000, and most of the women were making in and around 180,000. There are many reasons and explanations for those discrepancies in gender and salary and income. One of them being that female physicians and females in general, women are less likely to ask for raises. We're less likely to be offered more, but then we also don't ask for more. So even in an academic NICU or unit, comparable experience, education across the board of all physicians, there still was a large salary discrepancy between men and women. And I do not know how it was found out, but it was. And still, it seemed like there may have been one or two loud whistleblowers. I'm very grateful for them. But at the same time, I still don't believe I know that this one colleague who told me the story, she herself still did not ask for the raise, even knowing this discrepancy. And I see that a lot. Even if I tell physicians, even if you're able to get that information that so-and-so is making more, we still don't feel like we ourselves can stroll into an office, make an appointment, ask for that raise because, well, as we go back to saying, that's a selfish act and we need to be only in it for the patient. And if we're over here thinking about our salary, we must not be thinking about our patients. And ergo, we must not be doctors with the right motivations. And that is not true. So good doctors can negotiate their salaries. They can advocate for themselves, especially until we have a union and we have a body that is only focused on, physician livelihood and protection. Unfortunately, we have to do this individually, but it does take all of us. It takes every physician going to the table, advocating for themselves. Okay, so I'm not sure. I don't remember. Did you answer, Kit? Should we talk about our kids in our interviews or family life?
Short answer, no, never. No, okay. Never, ever, ever, ever. And long answer is because it is irrelevant to your ability to do the job. It is absolutely irrelevant. Second, you are talking to a recruiter who's a human being. If you share personal things, you're tapping into their unconscious bias. And sure, as recruiters, we take a lot of training, but I'm a human being. When you're sharing personal stuff that is not related to your professional life, I will choose a candidate who aligns best with my personal values. Now, is that fair? No. So no matter how many trainings I take, the fact that you say you have 0 kids or 10 kids, the misalignment or the alignment with my personal values will make me choose you or not choose you. And this has nothing to do with the job. Lastly, as a recruiter asking about family and kids and another list of things is illegal in an interview. So most of the time, recruiters will not ask you because it is illegal. So if a physician actually volunteers that information, it puts the recruiter in a legally binding situation because now they can't unhear it. Right. Now I know.
Now I know.
Now I know that you have a disability. Now I know that you have 5 kids. Now I know that I have all these things, and I can't unknow it. And I am professional, and I will put these aside, and I'll only focus on your professional side and your ability to do the job. But you're making it harder.
Yes, I would agree. And I now that I am hiring, I find myself having to check unconscious bias. So I most frequently see this with my physician mother friends who are often, wanting to find that job that allows them to be a present parent and mother, but also be able to be, active. Please, we need them, the active physicians that they are trained to be. And so they go into interviews wearing that on the sleeve. Well, I'm here because I want to be present for my kids. And they say it off the bat. And I think we do need more counseling around, practice talking about yourself. I tell them sometimes, can you talk about yourself for 20 minutes without talking about, who's at home? regardless. And I think that's an important maybe practice for all of us, but particularly our parents, our parent
So
physician friends out here.
let's say I'm religious and I cannot work on Sundays because I go to Sunday school or I go to church on Sundays. All I have to say is I'm unavailable on Sundays. Or I have two kids and I have to pick them up from daycare or drop them off somewhere else, and I cannot work after 2. All I have to say is I am unavailable to work after 2. You can still tell the truth and you can still
Right.
get to what you want without adding other details that are very personal and
Sure.
can tap into the unconscious bias of the person talking to you.
You are absolutely correct. Do you have any final tips for us as physicians going into these conversations and discussions with recruiters or thinking about future jobs or opportunities?
I could write a book about, 100 things one should do to get a better salary, to get the job of their dreams. I could write a book about 100 things one should not do. And if you read the 100 things you should not do, you're looking at it, you're thinking, well, these are common sense. Who even does these things? So what I see hurts candidates is not that they don't do the 100 good things, but that they do this one thing that only they do. And it's
Uh-huh.
not in my book of things not to do.
Well, you're
It's
going to write this
the
book at some point, but yes, please continue.
the mistakes candidates make are very unique to them, really. And so you cannot write a book. The best thing I would
Sure.
say to for any physician thinking about making a move, and another thing, don't think about making a move when you are up to here in frustration. Develop your network early, like you said, like looking at the locations, talk to other people. I can sense a candidate who is a little bit desperate.
Right.
There leaves little room for confidence there. Anyhow, let's put that aside. And so the best advice I could give is partner up with somebody who is a recruiter to do a mock interview. This could be your friend, your neighbor, your cousin's daughter's husband, I don't know who. But if it is a recruiter, just do a mock interview. And when I do mock interviews, I say, "Hi, I am Mike and I work for this hospital." And then the person I'm working with says, "Oh, Elena, I have a question." There's no Elena here. No, I am Mike. This is real. We have 15 minutes of uninterrupted. You're the candidate. I am Mike, representative of this hospital. And we go over many questions and we correct specifically what they say that cannot be captured in any book. So get personalized feedback with these mock sessions and get personalized salary practice. It's one thing to listen to this podcast that is amazing. Another thing is to read a book, but you cannot learn how to ride a bicycle in a seminar. Get on the bicycle. Get in front of a person who would say, "I'm not giving you the range." "Okay, I'm walking away." "Okay, okay, here's the range. It's kind of wide. Can you narrow it?" "I cannot narrow it. I'm walking away." "Oh, okay, I'll narrow it for you." And when I'm doing salary negotiation practices with candidates, I grill them. I'm the most unprofessional recruiter ever. And they're like, "Oh, you're killing me." Right. So will the rest of the recruiters. They'll kill you.
Sure.
And you need to do this practice so you can be a better negotiator and overall interviewer in a way that benefits you.
Okay, well, we will definitely have you back on the podcast so you can grill me. I am happy to be the example for all of the physicians out here who are hesitant to go into these interviews, feel like you don't have your chops. You're absolutely right. I loved you can't learn how to ride a bike in a seminar. Exactly. You have to practice. But of course, typically we as physicians don't think that we don't think that typical career coaches or these kinds of mock interview sessions are for us. We think that we need, specialized, dedicated physician help, which probably is less true. I think that there are more similarities to finding a job and doing the search with the rest of the population. But at the same time, I recognize that there are some nuances into what we do. But I know you have a venture, next stop dream job. I think that's the handle, and people should follow you on Instagram because you post such great tips about interviews. Is that where people should go to find more about you?
Yeah. And I post every time I have another session with a job seeker. more ideas come to mind, and I'm thinking, wow, I never thought anyone still says these things in the interview or still thinks that way. Let me address it really quick. And then I post it on my Instagram, because in my head I'm thinking, well, everyone should know how to interview. And then I have a session with someone and I'm thinking, oh, okay, yes, all right, yeah, you need a little bit of help here. And I'll sum it up in a 90-second reel on my Instagram so that everyone can actually benefit from it.
Great, great. Because exactly, we do not know where to look for interview help or guidance, but thank you for being a resource. I think that you have that physician recruiting experience, so you know where we're coming from. You're married to a physician, so you absolutely know how we think and what motivates and drives us and scares us, quite frankly, when we are going into these discussions. And lastly, do you have any suggestions for resources for physicians looking for more information or training about negotiation?
There's a good book that is called Never Split the Difference. And questions there are not such as, here's $100, can I have more? But more so, well, how can I accept $100 when I need to commute?
Right.
When you're giving me more responsibility,
Right.
when I'm leaving an annual bonus on the table. And so if you phrase it based on this book, if you phrase your answers as to, well, how can I accept this when my desired salary is this? I want to, how can I? Then it puts the burden back on the person giving you that offer to begin with. And I think
Yes.
it's a good tip that I'm already employing, and it's working great for me.
Good, good. And I agree. So that book is Never Split the Difference. It's by Chris Voss. He is an FBI negotiator. And it's an excellent book. He uses real life examples from his time negotiating with hostages or, trying to free hostages. It's a great book, and albeit feels a little more high stakes than the negotiations we do in everyday life, but the same tenets apply to all of us. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I talk to people sometimes and they say, it's really sad when I look at my paycheck and I'm sad that I didn't negotiate when I had the chance. So it's high stakes. You can be, like you said,
that's right.
years in one job and not get that raise. And your salary is a direct representation of your negotiating abilities at the beginning of the process.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. Again, expect to hear from us. We'll be having you back to do a true mock negotiation, and maybe I'll even bring a friend, so I'm not taking all of the burden myself. I'll bring another physician and you can interview us separately and see how we do so our listeners can learn themselves. Thank you, Elena, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Naomi. Thank you so much.